powerlift. I used to do this with clients. This is how I used to get my female clients to move away from the body image stuff and say, we're not going to worry about your weight. Stop weighing yourself. Don't look in the mirror. Trust me on this. All we're going to do is focus on how strong you are. And their bodies would improve because they would move their focus away so much from body image to performance. Are you seeing a lot of that?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's a really good conversation to bring up because it's one of the few sports that actually levels the playing field based off of, you know, genetic differences and morphological differences. Like if I had to build a powerlifter in a lab, it would look something like a female structure, right? The pelvis shape is usually going to accommodate for a better base of support. Now, if we play with the leverage game, we get them to go sumo. We basically take out the one disadvantage that they might have, is just like, you know, women have women have 9 times more estrogen, men have 15% more testosterone, or 15 times more testosterone. It's like, okay, androgen receptivity higher in the upper body. Females, as a consequence of this, usually have less ability to scale strength in their upper body, right? Period. But wide arch in the bench press, short levers as they're on average shorter. Sumo deadlift takes out a lot of the utilization of the lats. Well, here you have a sport where when we look at this Wilks ratio, which is a rough coefficient of strength to body weight, the top 5 strongest people in this sport based off of Wilks are all female.
Yeah.
So like here, all of a sudden, it's like, you know, the 100-meter dash, I don't want to say it, but it likely will always be the fastest person in the world will be a fastest man in the world.
Sure.
But right now, the top 5 strongest powerlifters in the world, if you went on openpowerlifting.org and you search by Wilks, top 5 are going to be females.
Wow.
Right. So that is a very empowering and enticing thing where, look, we're really evening the playing field here. And there is an enormous amount. In meets, even since I've started my powerlifting career in the past 5 years, the amount of female lifters and male lifters is almost a 1-to-1.
Wow.
When we go to, like, you guys had Steffi on the show, she's a close friend of mine. Like when we go to meets, like that's the draw card. Like I've been lucky enough in my career to be, you know, I've seen the biggest. I was there when the Vlad Alzhov squatted 11-17. I've seen Julius Maddox break world records. There's nothing like watching Steph lift. And here you have, you know, a room full of guys who look fucking just like me, a bunch of bearded dudes sitting around like in awe of this chick squatting like 500 pounds, who she's 120 pounds. So it's like it's very enticing to anyone. If anyone saw someone of their kind being praised like that, it would absolutely draw.
And even more than that, again, coming from the general population, in my experience, women benefit more, generally speaking, from the powerlifting principles than men do. Because look, when I train a male client, typically this is the conversation as we're working out. No, that's too much weight. No, your form is bad. We got to go a little lighter all the time, right? The dude's like, oh, I could do more weight. No, you can't. Actually, your form. With women, it's always like, hey, you can lift more weight. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I can. I don't know, whatever. Or I don't care how much I'm lifting. I just want to look a particular way. And then they have the body image issue stuff. You put them in the powerlifting principles, get their mind off of how I look. Do I look okay? What's going on? Okay, I'm lifting heavy. Oh my God, I'm so empowered. What? My metabolism's faster? Wait a minute, I'm getting leaner because I'm building more muscle. The benefits for women are tremendous. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you're seeing a 1-to-1 ratio and that the women are more of a draw.
Well, and now all of a sudden, even hormonally and neuroendocrine, like there is a benefit. If you look at the differences between men and women in training adaptations, like not only, we have like the discrepancy of estrogen to testosterone, but who said that's a bad thing, right? Like estrogen is going to help you metabolize carbs and fats. Estrogen is going to be something that allows you to recover from. Women can statistically utilize higher intensity at higher volume in training than men, right? So here's a sport that's going to allow us to practice a skill. You can practice a skill at a heavier relative percentage of your strength and recover from it better than a man. You're going to get better at that skill than a man would.
What an interesting fact that I've never heard.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is why they outlive men. It's true. I mean, we're more inflammatory. Our bodies just react a little bit differently. Men evolve to be expendable. If you have a society where, you know, half of the women died, that society would fail to thrive because a woman can only produce an offspring once every 9 months, whereas a man can, impregnate an innumerable amount of women in a short period of time. So theoretically, you could eliminate 90% of the men, and that society would survive. So we literally evolved to do crazy shit, kill ourselves, go to war, and evolution rolls the dice with us, and we're either going to be crazy or brilliant, and most of us are not, less of us are in the middle. Women are just more resilient. They're just, generally speaking, more resilient. So when it comes to resistance training, they respond very well to high frequency, heavy. Now, of course, they got to be healthy, they got to be fit. This isn't true for everybody, but generally speaking, when they're healthy and they do everything right, again, in my experience, when I have women train with powerlifting principles for strength, the psychological benefit and the physical benefit, the metabolism boosting, the way that their bodies shape, like I've seen women shape and sculpt their bodies in more favorable ways, according to them, than when they train with more bodybuilding principles or more of the traditional workout principle. I think powerlifting, it's funny because, and again, we're starting to see the tide turn a little bit. I think that's going to be a sport, or at least the principles of training, they're going to be more popular with women than they will even be with men.
Well, anatomically speaking, Jordan, do you think it's easier to actually train a female in powerlifting than it is male? What would you say?
So the two major anatomical principles that you should be aware of with females, like just from a structure standpoint, is an increase in Q angle and an increase in carrying angle. Those are, again, these are principles that we can see distributed widely across men, but on the overlapping tails of these two distributions, you're going to see the people with the greatest Q angles, which is like the angle in which your femur leaves your pelvis. So it's like women wide hips, narrower stance in the feet and knees.
Is this why they have a higher rate of ACL tears in sports?
Yeah, because gravity doesn't really care, right? Gravity is just going to do one thing, right? It's going to pull right to the heart of this place, and that's going to be however we align ourselves through it. Now, when the problem I see with women in powerlifting and coaching and a lack of understanding of these morphological differences, these differences in structure, is like we need to understand that, look, you'll see a higher incidence of ACL rates in female soccer, right? Like, but think of there's being a force being applied. Like if two girls go to kick a ball and there's already an inward trajectory of their femurs, there's going to be an increased amount of force applied to that ACL,
right.
or that medial meniscus, or that MCL, right? But when we're dealing with axial loads, it's like, this is the knees out conversation all over again. Well, it's like, all right, knees out as according to what? You're in your imaginary plumb line as a male coach, knowing that your hips, knees, and shoulders have been in a straight line since the day you were born, right? Or this realization that, look, there's knees out and then there's knees not in based off an anatomical neutral. Like this girl's MCL, ACL, medial meniscus have all been formed with the inward trajectory of her femur as she goes from crawling to walking and has been, managing compressive forces due to gravity her whole life. So yeah, there is a potential for if knees go in, it could be dangerous, but we need to understand that, look, we see a female's knees going in, but to her, that's neutral. Right, because her knees in is a resting expression of her increased Q angle.
Right.
So that's like from a morphological standpoint, it's not harder or easier. It's just something you need to be mindful of. Like if I see two knees go in below parallel, but I'm looking at those knees in the exact same spot they are when that girl is just standing there relative to her hips, I'm not going to superimpose my experience as a 6 foot tall, 270 pound born male with her experience. Like I'm trying to go inside her mind. Look, when her knees go in, it's not the same perception of my knees going in because my knees are lined up with gravity because I'm built like a fucking pop machine, right? Where it's like that's where she's used to, right? And that's going to be a safe place for her to lift in. Now, if that goes too far and that knees go in past that anatomical neutral, yeah, we're going to run into some issues. But just as they were running into issues if my knees went past my anatomical.